Depression is a global crisis affecting people from all walks of life. In 2020 alone, there were a staggering 53 million new cases of mental health disorders and around 76 million cases of anxiety and major depression. But many, perhaps you included, have no idea what it actually feels like. On today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're cutting through the silence. Join us as we reveal what it's really like to have depression. Many people mistakenly believe depression progresses through predictable stages, each leading naturally to the next. But this isn't true. It affects everyone differently, with varying levels of severity. A person can shift unpredictably, even going from feeling perfectly normal to the depths of despair overnight. And although there aren't formal medically recognized levels of depression, we're going to break it down into 4 broad categories and tell you exactly what it's like to experience each one. Depression Level 1. The most common level of depression is one that everybody on Earth is familiar with: sadness. While it's not significant enough to lead to a true mental health crisis, it is quite common. The death of a loved one or a pet, the loss of a job, or other significant event can usually prompt an individual to move to this feeling of depression. An individual is still highly functional, they're able to carry out their job as normal, and they can maintain social interactions, but something feels off. Conversations might feel like a chore, and smiles don't always come off as easy, almost as if something is physically weighing them down. These are the rainy days of life. They're expected, and everyone is going to go through at least some of them. Time is often the best remedy for this type of depression, as distance gradually soothes the pain. While sufferers can still enjoy their usual hobbies and activities, these events can lose some of their meaning and enjoyment. Life feels muted, but not completely gray. There's usually an awareness that this condition is temporary. Things can and will get better. Sadness is a natural response to life's challenges, but mild depression goes deeper. It lingers longer, and it quietly affects how you think, feel, and live your daily life. Depression Level 2. Mild depression is where things become more serious and we have the start of a true mental health crisis. Life becomes significantly more muted. While still functional, everyday activities become a chore in and of themselves. Work quality tends to suffer as shortcuts are taken, or individuals make legitimate mistakes due to a loss of focus. Conversations can feel exhausting, and keeping up the facade that everything is normal becomes an uphill battle. After all, nobody wants to be a Debbie Downer, right? Wrong. Speaking up when you feel this way is crucial. It's how you take control and stop things from spiraling further. Don't let the stigma silence you. At this stage, you might be so high-functioning that most people have no idea you're struggling. As social creatures, we'll often try to keep up appearances that things are fine, but maintaining that facade can easily become a burden all on its own, leading many to withdraw from social interactions entirely. It's easier to simply be alone and let shut-in behavior begin to manifest. Perhaps you can find yourself rushing home after work, eager to escape the world outside. Even small triggers can stir deep emotional wounds. Maybe it's a popular song that reminds you of someone, or passing a place where you have a cherished memory that's now long gone. These triggers are a significant wear on your mental health, and it can be easier to avoid them altogether by dramatically changing your lifestyle, or simply avoiding going out into the world as much as possible. After all, your triggers can't hurt you if you don't come across them. Mild depression can lead to significant coping behaviors. Because we don't like to feel bad, we find ways to cope with our pain. Unfortunately, many of these behaviors are harmful, creating a vicious cycle. What starts as a way to find comfort or numb the pain can quickly spiral, reinforcing poor mental health and leading to further deterioration. The very thing you turn to for comfort ends up making things worse. Shutting yourself in and watching television or playing video games can feel like a powerful way to cope. But reinforcing these behaviors can lead to serious issues like agoraphobia in long-term depression sufferers. Mild depression affects people in many ways, but with moderate depression, the challenges become much harder to manage. Depression Level 3. This is where the condition has become critically serious. Depression has completely consumed someone's life. It's a thing that you fall asleep with, and it's waiting for you when you wake up. Work quality suffers even more, and some people may find regular employment to be difficult, if not impossible. Even normal workplace feedback, like constructive criticism, can feel unbearable. Sufferers might react in extreme ways, some with anger or frustration, while others see it as validation of their own perceived shortcomings. These feelings of inadequacy are a core driver of depression, making everyday challenges feel overwhelming. Human interaction becomes incredibly taxing, and it becomes extremely difficult to hide your depression in prolonged social encounters. Sufferers may increasingly retreat to hermit-like behaviors, avoiding social situations that feel uncomfortable or overwhelming. Over time, this isolation can significantly increase the risk of developing additional mental health challenges, such as agoraphobia. It should be noted that while most individuals suffering from deep depression tend to prefer to avoid social contact, some individuals actually react in exactly the opposite way. Depression often pushes sufferers toward instant gratification as a way to escape the pain and the nothingness it creates. It's a condition that's unique to each individual, but some people with self-worth problems can actually find that their depression only pushes them further into riskier and riskier social interactions. This is why depression and other mental health disorders are often prevalent amongst those individuals drawn towards cults, hate groups, and far-right ideologies. The deep need to feel a sense of belonging can leave sufferers vulnerable, making them easy targets for groups that intentionally prey on those populations. They use promises of acceptance, pleasure, or other lures to draw people in. It can seem like a replacement for what the depression has stolen. Some people will find that they lose interest in sexual activities. Sex with a partner and even self-masturbation can suffer, as the depressed individual simply loses interest. This can have collateral effects for people in relationships, as the partner themselves begins to feel the tug of the depression. A loss of sexual interest can trigger physical and emotional insecurity, and a partner may not understand that it's not about them, it's about the depressed individual's emotional state. This is why communication is extremely important. Some, however, cope with this the opposite way, by seeking out sex or engaging heavily in masturbation. What those who haven't experienced this kind of depression need to understand is that depression is a joy killer. It doesn't just take away the joy people feel, it strips them of the ability to even imagine that happiness or enjoyment could exist. This is why it becomes easy to cope with depression through sex, either with a partner or alone with pornography. For some, the excitement of sex might be the only positive experience they have in their day, with an orgasm offering the sole moment of happiness they've felt in weeks, months, or even years. Stigmatizing the sexual behavior of depressed people is not helpful. Instead, understanding and support are crucial. But sex isn't the only thing people will turn to as a coping mechanism. Overeating very often accompanies depression because, like sex, eating can lead to instant gratification that lasts longer. Chips and soda every day may be terrible for your health, but sometimes it's the only thing that makes you feel good. Ironically, the food we typically turn to for comfort is the opposite of what we should be going for. Junk food has ingredients like sugar and various chemicals that activate the pleasure center of the brain, but there also comes with it a crash that can tank your mood shortly after, especially for things high in sugar. Meanwhile, healthy foods come with vitamins and minerals that directly promote good mental health. Vitamin D, for example, is increasingly being discovered to be critical to mental health. Low levels of vitamin D is linked to several mental health disorders, such as schizophrenia and seasonal affective disorder. As we get most of our vitamin D from the sun, it's easy to see why so many people today are lacking it. If you're feeling depressed, try getting some vitamin D in you via supplements. Drugs are another major coping mechanism, and the truth is, they work. If you're feeling depressed, you can take a single pill, and within 15 minutes, all of your troubles have disappeared. It's fast-acting and it's highly effective, but only for a fleeting moment. The relief is short-lived, the cost is high, and it leads you nowhere. Drugs might make you feel better temporarily, but as long as they're masking your depression, true progress is impossible. You'll find yourself trapped in a cycle where you need drugs to feel better because of the very drugs you're taking to feel better. But it can be entirely too easy to pass judgment on others. But for those fortunate enough to have never experienced this sort of depression, it's crucial to understand that these coping mechanisms provide a temporary escape from the relentless pain of depression. Nobody wants to be addicted to food, sex, or drugs in order to cope with their mental health, which is why stigmatizing, mocking, or ridiculing them only adds to the problems. The most severe type of depression is debilitating, with the weight of the illness feeling completely overwhelming. Depression Level 4. This is the most severe level of depression, and it comes when the person hits rock bottom. Here, the depression has become unbearable, to the point it's having a significant effect on job performance and personal relationships. Even holding down a career can feel impossible, often reinforcing feelings of worthlessness and deepening the cycle of despair. Interpersonal relationships can also crumble, as the sheer effort to hold a normal conversation can become too much. For someone this deeply depressed, everyday conversations can feel completely inane and meaningless. Hearing about other people's lives often serves as a painful reminder of how disconnected they feel from living their own. It can create deeply negative feelings for the conversation and maybe even the individual behind it, or it can all simply be completely unrelatable. These individuals can feel completely out of pace with the world, a feeling likely spurred on by even deeper isolation than at other kinds of depression. You can feel like being a mannequin trapped behind the glass of a store window. You watch the real world go by, people living their lives while you are stuck, changeless and disconnected, stuck in a loop that feels like it might last forever. Like a wounded animal, a deeply depressed individual may withdraw from social interactions entirely. They often seek the safety and comfort of their home, or even just their bedroom, as a protective cocoon. They might spend weeks, months, or even years in this state, and the depression can even affect basic things like media consumption. Some triggers can be so deeply painful that individuals will go to great lengths to avoid them entirely. This might mean giving up entire genres of music, movies, books, or even video games to escape the risk of encountering them. Wild shifts in preferences are often a good alarm bell for anyone on the outside concerned about a loved one. This intensity of depression is most closely associated with self-harm, but individuals may not actually have those ideations at all. Overwhelmingly, though, there is a complete inability to picture a better tomorrow. The odds of things improving is either so remote as to be impossible, or actually impossible in the mind of the depressed individual. Imagine waking up each day with the certainty that nothing good will happen. Worse, nothing that happens will make even the slightest dent in your depression. Every day is perfectly predictable because nothing can ever change anymore. Occasionally, brief moments may push back against the overwhelming hopelessness, but for individuals who have experienced this for extended periods, the countless times these hopeful moments sputtered out and failed can lead to them flat out rejecting the idea of hope altogether. In an attempt to not be hurt by disappointment, it can feel as if insulating yourself from hope is a safer bet to avoid the pain. The proposition of having to endure years or even decades like this until finding a natural death can be terrifying. At this point, life becomes about coping mechanisms, and when those coping mechanisms fail, it can come with dramatic mental health consequences. The good news is there is hope. There are mental health resources available that can help, that can listen. Local YMCAs and similar associations often offer in-house mental health counseling. Colleges and high schools typically have trained professionals who can support individuals dealing with depression. Doing simple things can make a big difference as well. Instead of ordering in food, get dressed and go to the store yourself. Make it a habit to put on real clothes and physically run your errands. Stepping out of your depression shelter can do wonders for your mental health. Even small actions like getting dressed in real clothes instead of pajamas can boost your mood and help you feel better about yourself. Like we mentioned, vitamin D is increasingly being shown to be critical for mental health, so consider picking up a supplement. The biggest change you can make, though, is to simply start editing your inner narration. Depression can poison our natural inner monologue and constantly reinforces negative ideas and thoughts. Breaking free from this trap is the key to moving forward. There's a very legitimate reason to feel sorry for yourself if you're deeply depressed, and nobody should make you feel like there isn't. However, learning to identify and interrupt those inner negative narratives is crucial. While it can feel cathartic to bemoan your troubles or complain, reshaping your inner monologue is the first step toward reshaping how you view the world. Taming your self-speak and consciously choosing positivity, even when it feels unnatural, is the first step toward reshaping yourself. It's also the only way to climb out of the deep hole that depression has created. Likewise, breaking free of hermit-like habits will immediately improve your mental health. Even if you have to leave an event early, simply re-entering the world and being around others is a way to start hacking your own brain back to normal. What do you think depression really feels like? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story could help someone else feel less alone. Let's create a space where we can support and learn from each other. Now go check out what happens to your body when you start exercising, or click this video instead.